Welcome to another episode of the A-Team at New Beginnings Farmstead. I'm Elisa. We have Ryan, Julie, Jeff, and Egidio. And today we are going to talk about bees, right?
Yes.
So we
Just
had
bees?
no birds. No birds.
No birds?
Just the bees today. We can talk about birds on another episode. Okay. So I'm going to go back a little bit and talk about why we even ended up with bees. So long before we had the farm, we weren't even looking at property. We had watched a documentary on the colony collapse disorder. And for people who don't know, several years ago, we were in a global crisis because bees were dying by the hundreds of thousands. And if bees die, scientists believe humans have 4 years to live because bees are responsible for 95% of the pollination worldwide. So right now, I think bumblebees are still on the endangered list. Do you know, Julie, if they're still?
I don't know.
A few years ago, they were put on the endangered list. So please don't kill the bees when you see bees. So we had watched a documentary. It was several parts long on what was happening with the colony collapse disorder and how it was a big, like I said, a global crisis, and international scientists were working together to try to figure out what was happening. And they were fortunate enough to find the source and try to reverse it. So do you know what the source of the colony collapse disorder? Anybody know?
I would guess either pesticides or cell phone towers.
So it was definitely the pesticides, but it was a new type of pesticide that had been introduced, and it wasn't one that was sprayed. It was a pesticide that was put in the soil. And what was happening is the plants were sucking up the pesticide, and that was the purpose of putting it in the soil. But when the bees would go to the plant to pollinate it, it was paralyzing their nervous system. So the bees what was happening is there's bee farms down south that go by the tractor trailer full of beehives, and they go to these monstrous farms out west or in the Midwest with their beehives with the purpose of pollinating these, tens of thousands of fields of farmland. And they were setting out the beehives, and instead of the bees going out and pollinating and coming back, the bees were just not coming back. So the bees were going out, they were pollinating, and they were dying on the plant. They would die right there. And the problem was, when they realized that this is a problem, they normally, if a beehive dies for any reason, they starve or they die from cold or from mites or some type of fungus, their dead bodies are there. So you could test them. You could do an autopsy and find out what caused their death. But in this case, they weren't returning, so they didn't know what was happening. So they were able to find the bees eventually, and they were testing them, and it was this pesticide, which now most states, not all states, have banned. So, which is, thank God they did that. So, there were things that led into it. Having the beehives and traveling long distances and introducing them to different environments over and over weakens their immune system before this was happening. So there were a lot of things that led into it, but it was like the perfect storm. So we watched that, and I wanted to
save the bees.
And we all should want to save the bees, right? We all have to do our part. Julie does her part every day.
That's right.
Julie works every single day diligently saving this planet. Yes. That's right. And then there's Ryan, who tries every day to counteract what Julie's doing.
I'm just a reasonable person.
So, Egidio had gotten me for Christmas. We took classes at a local bee supply place, and I wanted to have beehives. So that was the beginning of us having some beehives. And then Julie, you came with me one day. We were getting a new shipment of bees.
Yes.
So we have some video here if you want to start that. So what I love in this video is you can see us. I think it starts with us walking out from the house. Nope, that's just a picture. There we are.
Getting ready?
Yep, we were already there. So there's two different, there we are. So
Hopefully this will play.
Julie is wearing a child suit.
Hey,
Yeah, I think that was made for Turner.
It
right?
was. That was Turner's suit when he was like 10.
it's a little tight.
It's okay.
It was
Well, you
tighter on
had-
Turner.
Don't lean over.
You had your choice of Turner's suit or Egidio's. So, was this the first time you ever did?
Oh no,
No?
no. I've when I was working.
At the John Deere farm. Right.
Okay,
Mhm.
it's not the first time, and I've actually taught bee programs for a while. Through
Oh,
through the
nice.
city, yeah.
All right, so then you could have taught me how to do this.
Well,
But it was fun watching you.
Yeah, I guess so. So we did the classic thump and dump, right? That's what.
Yep.
That's what we were. Good. Look at Jeff's face. So those little boxes that we're carrying, that's a bee bus, and they have approximately 10,000 bees. You can see the bees hanging right there if you look at it. So each box has about 10,000 bees in it, and in the center of the bees there is the queen, and she's in a little cage where she's being protected because at this point the bees that are in the box don't know that that is their queen, so she's giving off
pheromones.
right, so that the bees get used to her. And what's going to happen is, we're going to show it in a second on this video, you bang the box, you thump it, and then we're going to open up the top and pull out this little canister that is feeding the bees. Right now you can see that we're putting some sugar water in front of the hive so that the bees have something to eat, because they've been in this box. They've traveled from Georgia in this box, and they're pretty hungry at this point. So bees are outrageously smart. Once you pour them in there, and they actually like pour like water, which is really cool.
And what
So
are you putting here? What's that piece of wood?
That is a, I think they call that a hive minimizer, because you want it. So if you see in the front, I put a little piece of wood that closes off the front, and then the feeder is in the front. So initially the bees will be in there and they'll just kind of stay together and have something to eat and drink. So this is what a bee super looks like inside. This has 10 frames.
And we had a strap on there to keep the bears out.
Yes, indeed. Definitely. So you can see there's a little bit of comb, some wax in there, some from previous bees that we had. And so that is going to give the bees something to immediately start. The queen will start to lay her eggs, and then the outer frames have nothing on them. So that's where the new bees will start to build their comb all around them. So I'm trying to see, like that one I just lifted up, it has nothing on it. So just getting everything ready, and I'm going to pour the bees inside, and I'm going to take one of those. See, I have a rubber band in my hand, and I am putting that on there because I'm going to put the little cage that holds the queen right there. Because in 3 days, I got to go back in the hive and get that little cage out, because I have to make sure that the queen made it out. So there's a little cage. It has the queen and it has 2 little helpers in there. And on the end, there's a sugar cube. So the bees that are in with the queen, they are eating that sugar cube and they're feeding the queen. And then the other bees are going to start eating the cube from the outside. It should take about 3 days for that cube to be gone. By that time, the bees recognize that that's their queen, and the queen is then able to get out of the cage. So I have to go back in 3 days to make sure that actually happened. Otherwise, the queen will starve to death. And you can see Julie there, and Steve's in the background. Is that Matthew behind you?
Looked like it, my team.
Yeah. And nobody got stung that day.
Nope.
Has Matthew ever climbed through a beehive?
No.
Does Matthew want to climb through a beehive?
I don't know.
Oh, when we get bees, we can see if he wants to. We're going to need a different suit, though, because he's a lot taller than you.
He is now.
So we're just looking at the different frames, and we're going to pour those out in a minute.
None of these frames have comb on them, or do they?
Some of them have some comb. Okay. Yeah, we usually, you want to start out with a little bit of comb, but I think I mentioned in another episode that we currently, right now, we do not have beehives, because my bees, I have purchased some new bee buses like several years in a row, and they do well all summer. And I go in the fall and I do a mite treatment, and I use an organic mite treatment for that. And then we have been winterizing. We've done everything by the book. They're doing well. Late December, when it's a decently warm day, I always go in and check them, and they're doing well. I put some food in there so that they continue to thrive. And about 2 months later, they all die. So we've really been struggling, and I know a lot of people in the area, their bees have been struggling. And I mentioned that I had spoken to someone, and they had suggested that what the problem is that when you start with some comb, there's pesticides in the comb. So even though we here on this farm, we don't spray any pesticides, but they're out there pollinating wherever, and whatever they're pollinating, if there's pesticides, they're bringing it back
And
to
they
the hive.
they have a 3-mile radius that they can
do.
fly.
Yeah.
So if anyone's using pesticides within 3 miles of this property, which they certainly would be,
Right.
unfortunately, that means that they're bringing it back. And so there's legacy pesticides present.
Right. Year after year of buildup inside there. So a friend of mine had suggested throwing out the frames and getting all new frames. So when we get new bees, which I'd like to do again really soon, we're going to start with all fresh new frames. So in the past, so right now in the video that we're watching, it's March, and March here is still pretty cold. So they had always recommended to start with some comb so that the new bees, again, they came from Georgia, so that they can at least stay warm for a few months, because it's a shock for them. And
I was just going to say, you were just pulling out the tray underneath, and that's often where you look for any kind of mites or ants or any kind of vectors or pests that have gotten in there.
right. Usually when we go to clean up the bee area, there's a couple mice that have set up camp, and they have a nice little snuggly warm area. And unfortunately, we have to kick them out. But I don't remember if there was any in this. This was a couple years ago now, but I see you're cleaning off the bottom board.
I think we did find some.
Did we?
Yep.
Yeah, can't blame them. It's a nice little warm area, and it's, like I said, it's March, so it's pretty cold out there. And so what you're cleaning, like some debris that the bees have brought in with them from all their worker bees.
And poop.
Yep. So the interesting thing about the queen is that she will go out of the hive one time, and for about 24 hours, once she's released from that little cage, and she goes out to mate. And she does not mate with drones, which are male bees. She does not mate with any drones from her own hive. She will go out and find male drones, about 8 different ones, and she will mate and then hopefully find her way back to the hive. And that's where she will live the rest of her life. The queen can live up to 3 years, and the worker bees live about 30 to 45 days, and then they cycle out. So the queen will spend her entire life, once she's back in the hive, in darkness, where she lays eggs, and the nurse bees will take care of her.
How long do the drones live after they mate?
Well, a drone will. I know. I love that you ask questions you know answers to. So
No,
a
I'm
drone.
actually, does anyone know the answer?
Do not. I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
So
we're
a
all asking.
drone will die right when he is finished mating with the queen.
Huh.
Hmm.
That's interesting. And that happens 8 times while she's in flight.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep. So what happens is the drone will be mating with the queen, and then the second drone comes along. Well, she will kick him off of her. And
is he dead at this point?
It is not. He is not dead. So it will break his penis off, and he will die. He will die from that.
Is that what you learned at the other farm too?
Horrible.
Yeah. And then the second bee comes along and pulls out the penis and will mate with her. He talk about dumb. You think he'd learn. And that is the process.
This is horrible.
It is horrible.
I'm going to need a minute.
It's nature. But in a beehive, they are 95% female because, of course,
Because we're all dying.
they do all the work.
Right.
I forgot that the chickens you just let you run by the road. I don't
yeah.
remember that happening.
Yeah.
Free range.
Yeah, they were free. Free to run. And that's what the hawks are saying. Woohoo! Look at these chickens running around. But yep, so she will come back, and that's where she'll stay. unless the hive gets too congested, and then they will swarm and take the queen. Half the hive will leave. Do you know what that is? Do you ever know about a swarm, Ryan? So what happens is when they get too congested. So they decide that they're taken off. Half the hive will leave, half will stay. And the half that are going to leave, they start to starve the queen because she is too fat to fly. So they
That'll
stop.
teach
Yep, they stop feeding her so that she can take flight. And the other half of the hive will start to make new queens. And what happens is they usually set up, like they start to feed about 6 different cells with royal jelly, which will create a queen. And they, instead of those eggs being on the frame, they hang down on the bottom and they look like a peanut. And they keep feeding it. And then takes 18 days for that to develop. And the first one out will make a chirping sound, and the other queens will chirp back at her, and then she will immediately kill the other ones because there can only be one queen. So before she hatches,
Kind of gangster. Isn't it?
yes, it is definitely
horrible.
it
These
is
are
Horrible.
savages.
Yep. So half the hive will leave. And a lot of times when you see like a puddle of bees on the ground, it's because the queen, she's in there and they're protecting her. And when she gets tired, she can't fly anymore. So they all just kind of rest on top of her. And when she's ready to roll, then they all take up flight and travel.
And they're very docile at that time.
Yes.
So it could be like 40,000 bees in one swarm, and they're very docile. You can't. But I mean, a professional beekeeper can sort of just grab them and
wrangle them
in and put them in a box. So if you do find a swarm, don't worry, but call someone who can come and get them.
Yes.
It
And
happens-
please don't spray them with pesticides.
Yeah.
Someone will come and take them and have another hive.
The problem is that people don't know a bee from a yellow jacket.
Right.
You got to know what you're looking at too. So
Right. We
I
have a
can
lot of
understand
different
that.
bees around here.
yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. So I mean, part of it is over the years, the fact is that with the honeybees we had, they show very little aggression. I mean, unless you get in their way between their hive and them, they're not going to bother you.
Because they die when they sting. So they
Right.
have a barbed stinger that if they sting, they're only stinging as a last resort because they're going to die after that.
Mhm.
It gets ripped out of their body.
And I love that you said that because the bees have traditionally not really liked you.
That's correct.
I don't know what it is. He gives off a scent or
Yep.
something. I
Yep.
could be in the beehive, and sometimes I've gone in there with no protection at all and just gone to check on them. And he can be all the way up the driveway and he'll call me and he'll like, "Are you in the bees? Because I just got stung 3 times." They find him on this farm and sting him.
They say if you smell like a bear and look like a bear, they're going to treat you like a bear, and that's what happens. Yeah, no, but that's common with anything. Yellow jackets around here, ticks. It's just I just for some reason I give off some pheromone or something that
They
they
find
like
him.
that they
Yeah.
like.
They
Yeah,
like him.
The bear
Yeah.
pheromone.
that's what it must be. Yeah, they do. When we would have to go in, I mean, I've upgraded now. Not that we have the bees, but after that last good stinging I got, I upgraded to a
We
like
call
a
it
net.
a
I could
NASA
actually
spacesuit.
land on space. Yeah, I could land on in the moon rather. I can go into space with this thing. It's fully enclosed, got an oxygen tank on it. Like they cannot penetrate this suit. There's no way, no how it's happening. And yeah, so I took a pretty good stinging the last time I went in there.
Yeah, you got stung like 9 times.
Yeah, yeah.
And what happened, unfortunately, is if I have to, you keep building the boxes on top of one another, and they're heavy. Each box has a couple of thousand bees, and they're full of wax, and they're full of honey, and they can weigh almost 100 pounds, and they're up in the air. They're over my head. So, and they stick together. So I've had to go in to remove some of the boxes, and I need help doing it. And unfortunately, it hasn't ended well for him when we've gone in there.
No, it hasn't.
Luckily, you're not allergic.
No, I'm definitely not allergic. After that last one, we had a hive that was essentially they were like Russian bees. Honestly,
They were
because
Russian bees.
They were
So
like
I took them.
they
we
were
had
like twice the size of the Italian bees. Right?
we usually
Corleone
get
or something,
they tell us from the place we get them that they always bring up the Italian bees, which are much more docile and create a sweeter honey. And
Like the cheese,
like the cheese,
Parmesan cheese.
and the wine. So I had this one hive, and they looked different, they sounded different, they were just aggressive bees, and
But
always
their production was
oh
twice
my
as
gosh,
much.
they were out of
Yeah,
control.
that's why we had to go in there. She had to add another hive box.
I had a,
'Cause
I
you
was
had the queen separator, so
yeah.
the queen can't lay eggs.
Yeah,
But
up
the rest
where
of
the
the
honey
hives,
is.
the rest of the hive had plenty of comb. And it got to the point where she had to add another full 10 frame
Oh,
hive box.
I had probably 5 boxes, and I'm like, I can't go any higher. I'm going to have to split this hive. They were so out of control. But in the meantime, I kept taking pictures and sending it to my bee person, saying like, what is going on with this hive? And they're like, oh, you just have you have good supply there. They're doing great. And then finally, I was like, this. After they went after him, I I I took one in a jar and I brought it with me, and he's like, ooh, oh, this is not good. You have this is a Russian hive, and you really don't you don't want these. They're very aggressive towards people. So he said, you're gonna have to go in and find the queen, and you have to kill her so that it'll cycle out. And that was the only time that I got really stung. I think I got stung like 6 or 7 times that day. But as soon as I found the queen and I picked her up, and I was wearing gloves and the whole suit, they lost their minds. I mean, that is their job, is to protect the queen. But
Right.
this one hive was out of control.
Yeah, she used she smoked them, opened the top, smoked them, and they all kind of went back. And I had to take the top box off. She was going to put the other one in there, and I'm like, man, I don't know. They doesn't look good. And at the time I was wearing what I referred to as my bee bra. It was like a half suit. It was like small. The helmet didn't really. It was like.
And this hive was like super loud. It was like just
Yeah,
different.
and she's like, hey, I need help. You got to come up here. And so it was midday, and it was like a haze in it. I'm like, as I'm walking up, I'm seeing this hive. I'm like, man, something's not right. Like, are you sure? She goes, oh, yeah, no problem. I've been here before. And so she smokes them. They kind of go back in, and then she hits it with the crowbar, splits the propolis open to get the separation of they seal everything up. And I'm like, I don't know. She goes, just lift off the hive, stop, and just put it down there.
Being
I'm
so
like,
dramatic.
yeah, I don't know. I got gloves on, and so I kind of lift up the box, and as I lift it up and I put it on the ground, I put it on the top of the side box there. Without exaggeration, at that point, they all came to the top of that hive box and flew right into my face on the mat, and I could see the stingers coming through. It was unbelievable. In actuality, I screamed like a little girl getting her hair pulled.
And I kept saying to him, just stay calm,
Back
out.
So I
stay
can't
calm.
see. My mask is completely
There was no
covered
staying
in
calm.
bees. And at that point, one got underneath the suit and up inside here and was buzzing around, and it caught me right underneath the eye.
Oh.
And at that point, my reaction was, get it off me. And I went like that, and I pulled the bees off my face mask, off the netting, but the leather glove caught the corner and tore it open.
So now the bees got inside.
So now they are just on me. So I'm running across from the bees, across to where the house is, and I'm peeling clothing off as fast as I can because they're just on my body everywhere. And I get to the back door, and I am essentially
he only had his underwear on
in
that
my
point.
underwear. I mean,
He
clearly
stripped
I kicked my
as
boots
he's
off.
spinning like the Tasmanian devil.
Yeah. They were on
and
me. I couldn't get them off
screaming
me.
the entire time.
In fact, I got in, I shut the door. There were like 2 or 3 on me, and I pulled them off, and I'm looking outside of the glass door, and they're still like bouncing off the glass.
Yeah, they were
very
crazy.
aggressive. And
Very,
I
very
said to her,
aggressive.
you got to kill him. So at that point, I'm taking the Benadryl. I'm trying to get, my eye was shut. I couldn't see. And I got this suit that's all in pieces. And so she's like, I'm sorry. And then like 3 hours later, I go back out. I'm like, and she's like, hey, I need you back in the beehive. I go, what?
I got to put the hive back
She goes,
together,
I can't
and I
lift
can't
it up.
lift it.
I need you to. I'm like, first of all, I don't have a bee suit. I'm not going back in there without a bee suit. And she hands me the bee suit that she picked up off the ground, and she had duct tape the front of this mask. So all I had was this little one little eye hole as I'm going in there. And I told her, I said, you might as well. I want you to put as much smoke in between. So she just smoked as I'm walking up there.
It was like nightfall's coming. I got to put it back together. I couldn't lift it before. I still can't lift it. Still need you.
Yeah, these bees have been a tremendous amount of work. It's not just like, hey, we have bees, right? So I was in Kingston buying something, and a storm similar to what's going on out there now. High winds came out. We had a tree just on the other side. She calls me. She goes, "You got to come right back. The tree came down and landed on the hive."
Yep.
And now I'm thinking, okay, so one less hive, right? Nope. She's out there trying to collect the bees as they're flying around in this storm. But anyway,
We put them back together, save them.
found
Gotta
another
save the
hive.
bees.
She
That's
got-
our goal is
she-
to save the bees.
She got all the frames out, found the queen, all this while this
Right.
is there.
And the tree was there. We had to cut. He's trying to cut. He had to put his suit on, his bee bra on to go out and cut the tree off the hives as I'm trying to put the hive back together. And we got it back together before the storm hit. Save them. What are you going to do?
Okay.
So hopefully next year we'll get some more hives, and we have to figure out where they're going to go because I don't think that location is good either.
No, they should be up by the wedding field right next to where the ceremony is taking
Oh,
place.
that's a good plan.
Right there.
I think
Yeah.
they need more protection because they used to be surrounded by some overgrown brush, and now we've cleaned up the entire area, and I think that is contributing to them. I think the wind goes up that hill, even though there are winterized, and I don't know. I'm not really sure, but we're going to put new frames in there, and they need a location where they're not getting blasted by cold wind. So we'll have to figure that out. We'll do a whole new episode on that, on where.
I suggest that we
gonna-
put them on a trailer,
Yes.
a bee trailer, beehive trailer.
Well,
Like
yeah.
a chicken tractor.
Right,
There
but
you go.
are honeybees the same as other bees that if you move the nest, they won't be able to find their way back to it?
You
If
should move it
they're-
overnight, right? Is that, I think
So you
that's what
want to
it is.
While
move it
they're
if they're
there.
in
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can
Right,
close up
yeah.
the front and while they're in,
Yeah.
and move it then.
I'm pretty sure that's what they told us. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really a good idea to keep moving it. So
Right.
a trailer isn't a great idea, but it's got to be someplace else. They do suggest putting it like on the side of where there's some kind of building, some kind of structure that you can.
We tried
Block the
that. We
wind.
put up a small structure. We tried to keep the wind off. We put hay bales. It just wasn't a great location
Yeah,
for
it's
that.
just
And
not a
again,
good
the
spot.
pesticides contributed to some of it, right? That's,
Yeah,
they
that's,
degrade
I'm
the
sure
ability
it's
for it,
all of
so,
it,
yeah.
all of it together. So
Yeah.
we'll have to figure that out.
Good.
We'll have to do some research, and we'll do a whole episode on that. So that's all for this episode, and we hope you enjoy it. And please don't kill any bees in your travels. And
We'll
that's
be back soon.